Those who know me well know that the song "Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee" is my favorite. Some might dismiss the hymn as being too happy, too slight for today's injustices. After all, how can we sing about joy when there is so much fragmentation, loneliness, and violence in our world? Yet, when we listen to the words, we find a song that includes a whole range of feelings: sadness, doubt, love, triumph. Joy rises not from negating the strife within our bodies, both individual and collective, but because love holds us in our moments of sadness, rending, and doubt. And when we're held long enough, our hearts and our bodies trust enough to unclench. The hymn writer puts it this way: hearts unfold like flowers before thee. With love, hearts can swell with new possibility. There is a catch, or perhaps it's a pearl. This love is a communal love. It pushes back on the ideal of individualism, and this pushback results in glory. In the book of John, the theme of embodied glory wends its way through the good news. In chapter 1, the Son of God gets a body and goes about calling his disciples to come and see and come and stay, as if to say, this glory is for you too. In John's gospel, Jesus and his disciples go back and forth from Jerusalem to Galilee several times. On their travels, things happen. Plain old water is transformed to exquisite wine for a wedding feast. A curious Samaritan woman at a well resists the taboos of the day, stays in conversation with Jesus, and believes. In fact, her whole village believes. A boy's 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, broken up, feed a crowd of more than 5,000 people. Leftovers remain. Jesus weeps at the death of his friend Lazarus. Then Jesus calls Lazarus from the tomb to life again. And later at the dinner table, Mary, sister of Lazarus, gets very expensive perfume, anoints Jesus' feet with it, and wipes them with her hair. The fragrance lingers. And later, the Last Supper ends with the disciples sporting clean feet, and Judas hurrying away, he too, with clean feet. It's as if nuggets of abundant glory are left throughout the text, leading right up to where we are today, and it too shimmers with the abundance of love, a persistent sort of love. Listen to the words Jesus spoke to his disciples, now resting with clean feet tucked under them. John 15, 9 through 17, and this is from the Message. I've loved you the way my Father has loved me. Make yourselves at home in my love. If you keep my commands, you'll remain intimately at home in my love. That's what I've done. Kept my Father's commands and made myself at home in his love. I've told you these things for a purpose, that my love might be your joy, that my joy might be your joy, and your joy wholly mature. This is my command. Love one another the way I loved you. This is the very best way to love. Put your life on the line for your friends. You are my friends when you do the things I command you. I'm no longer calling you servants because servants don't understand what their master is thinking and planning. No, I've named you friends because I've let you in on everything I've heard from the Father. You didn't choose me, remember? I chose you and put you in the world to bear fruit, fruit that won't spoil. As fruit bearers, whatever you ask the Father in relation to me, he gives you. And remember the root command, love one another. Jesus spoke these words to simultaneously comfort his own and to prepare them for the future, a future that we are part of. The words in this text, love, home, command, joy, spiral like the branches of a grapevine, or we could say spiral like the veins, arteries, and nerves of our bodies. These words deepen the authority of life. They are a way forward in times of strife. Imagine for a minute ensembles of people throughout time hearing these words of Jesus. Imagine we are one of the first disciples. We have journeyed with Jesus through the Gospel of John. Remaining with Jesus these past months has had its ups and downs. We've been puzzled, loved by others, and even hated. We try to comprehend these experiences. Now one of our own has turned his back on us all and walked away. As we sit and listen to Jesus talk, we try to understand the confusion within ourselves and the conflict happening outside on the streets. We don't know yet that Jesus will be killed by execution, but we do know that we love Jesus and that we are afraid for our present and future. As we strain, we hear Jesus say, "I've loved you the way my Father has loved me. Make yourselves at home in my love. Love one another." Now imagine we are a part of the community of Jesus followers for whom the Gospel of John was written. Several generations have come and gone since Jesus died and was resurrected. We grapple with rejection, pain, and alienation. Questions swirl in us. We are afraid for our present and future. We long for the safety of a home in this world, a world fraught with violence. We are lonely. As we strain, we hear Jesus' voice through the reading of the Gospel of John. "I've loved you the way my Father has loved me. Make yourselves at home in my love. Love one another." And now, loneliness. It's still here. Perhaps we are lonelier than ever, even with Facebook, texting, and Zoom. The pandemic, violent rhetoric coming from all directions, increased national fervor, and racial tensions have led to fear and division, not only in our world and nation, but also neighborhoods, families, and churches. We long for wholeness. Our bodies ache for a bit of glory on our journeys. We want to be home where we can give and receive love. We are afraid for our present and future. As we strain, we hear the words of Jesus, ancient words ever new. "I've loved you the way my Father has loved me. Make yourselves at home in my love. Love one another." Love. Does it really make a difference in a way that matters? We might be tempted to write it off as a dreamy emotion meant to lull people to accept the injustices of our day. Yet, when we make ourselves at home in God's love, settle in, nourish ourselves with it, drink our fill of it, it opens us to own the despair in our souls, heals us, and gives us the courage to let go of our indifference to the suffering of others. We wake up, not once, but again and again. Hearts unfold like flowers. The story of the secret life of bees is a tale of hearts unfolding, not only in the actual storyline, but also how the story has been told throughout the years. The off-Broadway show, The Secret Life of Bees, based on the book by Sue Monk Kidd, tells a story that is set in the summer of 1964. For those of you who lived through this summer, you may recall that this was a tumultuous time. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy was vivid. The civil rights movement was seeking change for the minority groups in America, and Reverend Martin Luther King, along with others, were traversing the country speaking and acting for racial equality and beloved community. President Lyndon B. Johnson, new to the role of presidency, urged for the passage of a civil rights bill that would abolish segregation, the Jim Crow laws, and allow Black people to vote. Enter the characters of the book. Lily, a white teenager on a peach farm in South Carolina whose mother has died and whose father is abusive. Lily's being raised by a Black housekeeper, Rosaline. The plot kicks in with Lily escaping her father with Rosaline, who has been jailed and beaten for trying to register to vote. Lily rescues Rosaline from the hospital, where she is handcuffed and guarded. They flee to another town, a town that neither of them have been to, but that is written on the back of a picture of a Black Madonna that Lily's dead mother left behind for Lily. This Black Madonna, which turns out to be a label of a honey jar, leads them to the home of 3 Black sisters who are beekeepers, selling their honey stamped with a symbol of a Black Madonna. This ensemble of women in 1964 becomes a home of belonging and healing. A good story. I first read the book by Sue Monk Kidd in 2002 when it was published. And later when the movie came out in 2008, I watched it. I loved it, precisely for its message of the necessity of community in times of racial injustice and gender injustice. I loved it for the courage of Lily. The book is written in her voice. What I wasn't ready to see at that time was that I was engaging with this story as a woman with a white body. Other readers, Black-bodied readers, perhaps saw another message, one that was tired and hurtful. The emphasis that Black people once again need to be the healers of white people. Lynn Nottage, a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright, wrestled with this storyline and created The Secret Life of Bees off-Broadway show, which was performed in 2019. She rose to the challenge of taking the point of view off Lily. Lynn Nottage says, "We were hyper-aware that we didn't want to create a tale which was just about a young white woman entering into this household and being nurtured by Black women, but that it was a tale about community." And so it was that 2 young women, Rosaline and Lily, both who have been scarred in different ways, who need to be healed, who find refuge amongst this hive of women. Author Sue Monk Kidd was pleased with the nuancing of her storyline, calling it a brilliant move to make it an ensemble of voices rather than a focus on Lily. With love, hearts swell with new possibility. In our world of increased racial tension, what can we learn from making our home in Jesus? In his book, After Whiteness, An Education in Belonging, Willie Jennings envisions the work of formation, which is at the center of theological institutions, as being a practice of belonging. While he is addressing seminaries, I think his message can extend to us as church. As church, can we look at our work of formation as followers of Jesus as a practice of belonging? Willie Jennings' book is beautiful and challenging. It critiques whiteness. Early on, he poses the question, how do we form life such that everyone may feel at home in the work of building, sustaining, and supporting? The answer to his question isn't really how we build or what we are building. Rather, it is where we are building. He goes on to talk about Jesus as a joining space, a space for gathering together. He says, this Jesus space draws people to flourishing life together and to a work of building together. They build around his body, they build against death, and they build toward a place of gathering that will never end. This lines up with John's gospel. The words right before the text that we read from John offers us a metaphor of a practice of belonging, that of a vine and branches. Jesus is the vine. Those who love Jesus are the branches, and God is the vine grower. This metaphor shows us that loving one another is a great tangle of green, growing interdependence. Christian community includes Jesus followers from the North Pole to the South Pole, people of all races, colors, dialects, nationalities, gender identities, and abilities. We prosper together in community. When Jesus followers love one another abundantly, vulnerably, openly, we will overflow in glory to the world. Rather, like exquisite wine, bread for all, and lingering fragrance. This metaphor also opens a new story about our God. God wants to be with us. God, through Jesus, joined with us to live as we live, to suffer, to weep, to celebrate, to be hungry and to feed others, and to journey with love and a willingness to transgress boundaries. God, who poured herself into all creation, becomes subject to risk, vulnerable to hurt and pain, just as we are. God makes her home with us and invites us in our particularity and commonality to settle down and to practice belonging. What does it mean to make ourselves at home with love? As we are connected through Jesus, we open ourselves to vulnerability by both giving to and receiving from others. This dance of offerings can create a tension, but isn't tension present in all creative action? Lily, petulant and self-absorbed, needed to hear the full-throated, powerful song from Rosaline, "It's Not About You." Perhaps singing these words were healing too for Rosaline. Conflict can be opportunity for growth, for rebirth, for birth again, as John puts it. Openness to each other goes beyond a liberal inclusion of the other. It includes an acceptance of some things that are against myself, ourselves as white people. Openness involves the work of conviction and turning our back on all which does not deepen life. It disturbs the status quo within us and in structures which are centered in whiteness rather than in Jesus, the one who emancipates and reconciles. Openness is not real if it does not hold the fullness of life's sufferings, ours and others, along with the hope of flourishing together in a green tangle of conversations and actions. Love presents a paradox. Its strength is in vulnerability. It is speaking and closing our mouths. It is not violent, yet it contains conflict and challenges. This love brings freedom from oppression and this freedom also reconciles. It is a practice of belonging, and it is glorious and joyful and hard because love requires us to own pain, both others and our own. Taking Rosaline's song to heart as church might mean that we all step into a new space together, a joining space. We can be an ensemble of people gathered to hear Jesus' words echo across the time to right now. I've loved you the way my Father has loved me. Make yourselves at home in my love. And now go and bear fruit that won't spoil.